Wyoming Territory, January 3rd, 1873. The wind howled across the white plains like something alive, gnawing through cotton and wool and bone. Naomi Allen curled tighter around her baby, pressing her back against the half-buried log to block at least one side of the wind. Her arms trembled from holding him close, yet she did not loosen her grip. Little Levy had stopped crying an hour ago. That silence scared her more than the wind. She had not eaten in 2 days. Her boots were soaked through, and the hem of her skirt had frozen stiff. The wagon that carried them west had broken a wheel 2 days back. The men who promised to help had disappeared with the mule team during the night. One of them had looked at her the wrong way more than once. She was glad they were gone. But that left her 23, widowed, freezing with nothing but a baby and a patchy quilt. A sound cut through the wind. Hoofbeats. She tried to lift her head, but it fell back against the log. Her eyes stung. She blinked snow from her lashes, trying to make out the shape coming over the ridge. A man on horseback. The coat he wore was dark brown and heavy, dusted with snow. The rifle slung behind his saddle glinted in the pale sun. His hat was pulled low, but he reined in hard the moment he spotted her. A second later he was off the horse, boots crunching fast over snow. "Madam." His voice was deep, urgent. He dropped to his knees beside her, eyes sweeping over her and the baby. "Are you hurt?" Naomi tried to speak. Nothing came out. She managed a weak shake of her head. He reached out gently, pressing 2 fingers to the baby's cheek. "Cold as ice," he muttered. Then his eyes met hers. "You out here alone?" she managed to whisper. "They left us." He did not ask who. He did not ask why. He pulled off his gloves and shrugged out of his coat in one motion. "Take this," he said, wrapping it around her and the baby. "You ain't dying out here, not today." Her lips trembled. "I do not know you." He looked at her straight. "You do now. I am Warren Holt. That baby's yours," she nodded. "Then you're both mine now." She blinked, unsure what he meant. He picked up the baby, then lifted her gently in his arms. "I've got a cabin not far, fire's going. I'll get you warm, fed, you and him." Naomi did not have the strength to argue. Her head dropped to his shoulder. His coat smelled of wood smoke and leather. She heard his heart beating close to her ear, steady as a drum. The ride back was a blur. She was only half aware of the rocking horse, of the warmth of his body against hers, of the way he kept murmuring to the baby, checking to make sure he was still breathing. Then light. A cabin door swinging open. Heat. Warren set her down on a cot near the hearth. The fire crackled high. He moved quick, almost too quick to follow, laying the baby down wrapped in a thick wool blanket, stoking the fire higher, fetching something from the stove. "Drink this," he said, pressing a warm tin cup to her lips. "Just broth. Easy does it." Naomi swallowed. It burned going down, but it was the best thing she had tasted in days. Her eyes filled with tears. He knelt beside the baby, touching his little chest. "He's breathing better." Then he looked at her. "What's his name?" "Levy," he nodded. "Strong name. How old?" 3 months. Warren stood. "I'll get you dry clothes. You need rest. I won't go far." She listened to the sound of him moving through the small cabin, pulling open a chest, gathering blankets. He returned with folded clothes and turned his back while she changed. Her hands shook the whole time. The dry wool was scratchy but warm. When she lay back down, she saw Levy asleep, tucked safe in a basket near the fire. Warren pulled up a chair. "Why were you out there?" he asked softly. Naomi stared at the ceiling for a long moment. "My husband died in Missouri, fever. I was trying to get to Idaho. My cousin married a ranch foreman up there. She promised work. We joined up with a group heading west, 3 men. One of them had a wagon. They said they would help." Her voice cracked. "They lied." Warren's jaw tightened. "You do not have to explain. They left you to die. That is all I need to know." She looked over at him. Why did you help me? He shrugged once. Because someone had to. That night she slept deeper than she had in weeks. When she woke, there was stew in a bowl beside her, and Levy was warm and fed. Warren had milked the cow and even mended her torn shawl with thick thread. He never asked for anything, never even looked at her too long. But when she thanked him, he only said, "You and that boy are safe here, as long as you want to be." A week passed. Then two. Naomi helped cook. She cleaned. She sat on the porch wrapped in a quilt while Warren chopped wood. Levy began smiling again. Her hands stopped shaking. The hollowness in her chest began to ease. One evening, Warren sat beside her on the porch, a rough blanket over both their shoulders. The sky had turned orange and gold. Levy slept in her arms. Warren's voice was quiet. "I never thought I'd want a family." Naomi looked at him. He stared out at the land. "I came out here 10 years ago, fought in the war before that, did not come looking for anything but quiet. I've had it for years. But now," he looked at her, "now I hear a baby cry in the night and I do not mind. I see you smile and it feels like something I cannot explain." Naomi swallowed hard. "I meant it," he said. "When I said you're both mine now, I will take care of you if you let me." She looked at him, really looked. His eyes were steady. "Honest. I do not know what happens next," she said. "I do," he answered. "We keep living together." She reached out, laid her hand on his. He turned his palm up and held it tight, and for the first time in a long, long time she let herself believe that things might just be okay. Naomi brushed the dust from the hearthstones with the flat of her palm, careful not to wake Levy bundled in a sling across her chest. Smoke climbed slow from the chimney as the morning light settled over the snow-thawed hills. The air still held the bite of cold, but the worst of winter had passed. She could feel it in her bones, the way her limbs moved easier, the way her thoughts didn't catch so often on the past. Warren stepped in through the cabin door, his coat heavy with trail dust, hat tucked under his arm. He shut the door behind him with care. "Was he fussin'?" he asked, nodding toward Levy. Naomi shook her head. "Slept through your hammering." "Good. I got the last of the hinges fixed. Barn door won't drag anymore." She stood, shifting Levy to her other shoulder. "What barn door did before never much bothered me." He set his hat on the peg beside the door. "Well, it bothered me." She looked at him then, longer than she meant to. The way he stood with his hands loose at his sides, boots still caked with frozen mud. There was always something grounded in him, like the earth itself liked him better than most men. "You don't sit still long, do you?" "Not when there's work." "Not when the roof's still leaking in the corner." "The leak's been there longer than we have." "Well, we're here now." Naomi untied the sling and laid Levy in the cradle Warren had built from old pine boards. He stirred once, then settled again. "You always keep your promises?" she asked, not looking up. "Only the ones I mean." She turned slowly, watching him. "And what about the ones you don't say out loud?" His brow furrowed. "You think I've been keeping quiet?" She crossed her arms, but not in defense. More like she was holding something in. "I think you've been careful. I think you're waiting for me to say it first." He walked toward the fire, crouched to add a split log, then stood again. "I was waiting for you to feel safe enough to say anything at all." Naomi's throat tightened. "I didn't expect kindness from a man again." Warren leaned on the mantel, crossing one boot over the other. "You didn't get it from the last one. He was good," she said softly. "But he was tired. Wore his worry like a second coat. He thought if he kept moving west, he'd outrun whatever chased him. Fever caught him before Idaho did." Warren didn't speak right away. The only sound was the fire settling into its new fuel. "I don't want to outrun anything," he said at last. "I want to stand still and build something that lasts." Naomi stepped closer until the heat from the fire touched her side. "With someone," he nodded once. "With you." She looked down at her hands. The skin was healing where it had cracked in the cold, but the scars were still pink. I don't come with just myself. I know. I come with grief. I've seen it. I don't have much left. You've got everything I want. She met his eyes then. There was nothing hurried in them, just the plain truth of a man who knew he could wait as long as he needed. Naomi reached for his hand. Then help me plant something. Warren's fingers closed around hers. Spring's not far. We've got time. That night she stood beside him as he rolled the seed sacks in from the shed. He explained the rows he'd planned, the way the soil turned best after frost. She listened, nodding, not because she cared about corn just yet, but because his voice made the room feel warmer. After Levy had been fed and laid to sleep, Naomi lingered near the window while Warren rinsed the dishes in the basin. The lantern light flickered against the glass. "What made you stop that day?" she asked without turning. He dried the tin plate slow. "Saw a shape in the snow, thought maybe it was a deer or something worse. Then I saw the baby. Then you." She pressed her hand to the window frame. "You could have kept riding, I know." "What if you hadn't?" "I did." She turned, the firelight catching the edge of her face. "I want to stay." Warren set the plate down and crossed the room. He didn't touch her, just stood close enough for her to feel it. "You're not just staying," he said. "You're home." She nodded, and when he leaned in, she didn't flinch. Their foreheads touched first, then mouths soft and sure and steady. There was no rush, no hunger, just the quiet promise of two people who had already weathered the worst, and this time there was no wind waiting outside. Only the hush of a land settling into spring, and the warmth of something new taking root. The ground thawed slow that spring, but Naomi welcomed the ache of work. She wore a wide-brimmed straw hat Warren found in a battered trunk, and her skirt stayed hitched above the ankles as she dug furrows with a short-handled hoe. Her palms blistered and healed, then blistered again. She didn't mind. Her muscles ached differently now, not from desperation, but from purpose. Warren worked beside her, sleeves rolled, a scar on his forearm she hadn't noticed before catching the light. He didn't speak much while working, but he handed her water before she asked and steadied her when the soil slipped underfoot. They moved in rhythm, planting beans and turnip seed, the silence between them filled with something settled. One afternoon, after they'd come in from the field and washed the dirt from their hands in the basin, Naomi folded a clean cloth and set it beside Warren's plate. "You've got a mark on your arm," she said. He didn't look at it. "Bayonet Shenandoah." She waited, but he said no more. Later, she found his old coat tucked behind the stove, threadbare at the cuffs. She mended the seams without mentioning it. He saw the stitches that night and touched the new thread once, then served her stew from the pot with a nod. The days lengthened. Levy began to roll onto his belly, fists balled beneath his chin, watching the cabin with wide eyes. Naomi started singing again, low and steady while she rocked him, songs her mother used to hum while hanging linens. Warren would pause in the doorway sometimes, shadows stretching behind him, listening without stepping in. One evening, Naomi lifted her hem to show her bare feet, stained green from the garden. "I used to hate dirt under my nails," she said. Warren leaned against the doorway, arms crossed. "You look better with it." She raised an eyebrow. "You calling me grubby? I'm calling you alive." Naomi stepped closer. "You ever been married?" "No, why not?" He glanced at the fire, then back at her. "I never had anything worth asking a woman to stay for." She tilted her head. "And now, I've got a roof that holds, a woman who hums while she sweeps, a baby who laughs at my face every morning. Think that counts?" That night, she let her hand rest on his shoulder longer than usual before pulling away. He didn't move, just looked down at her hand, then back at her face like he didn't want to break the moment by naming it. The next morning, Naomi found a new cradle Warren had carved. Smooth pine, wrapped in muslin. No nails, just joined wood, hand-shaped. Levy slept deeper in it than he ever had. She traced the edge of the wood with her fingertip. "Why build another?" Warren shrugged. "First one was rushed. You were barely standing. I wanted this one to be made right." She turned to him, voice low. "You always fix what's broken, only if it's worth the time." Naomi reached up, tucked a stray piece of hair behind her ear. "And what about things that aren't broken, just worn?" He took a step toward her. "Those are the best kind." She let her hand find his. "I can't promise I'll always be strong." "I don't need you strong," he said. "I just need you here." That night, Naomi didn't sleep on the cot. She waited until the fire burned low, then crossed the room and slid into Warren's arms without a word. He pulled the quilt over them both, his breath warm against her neck. No vows, no ceremony, just the quiet weight of a promise made with closeness and time. Outside, the wind had shifted. Softer now, carrying the scent of wet earth and new grass. Inside, their breaths fell into rhythm. Two lives stitched together not with sudden passion but with steadiness, with tending, with the slow bloom of something earned. And for the first time since Missouri, Naomi dreamed of a future that didn't frighten her. By mid-April, the creek behind the cabin ran full, its banks thick with willow roots and the first shoots of marsh grass poking through mud. Naomi had taken to kneeling near it in the mornings, Levy strapped snug against her back. She'd wash linen there, sleeves rolled, her hands red from cold water and lye soap. Warren had offered to build her a washboard, but she told him the creek worked fine, and she liked the sound of it steady, never hurried. That morning, she spotted a wagon trail cutting shallow across the bluff. Two sets of wheel marks, not fresh but not washed out either. She stood still, watching the horizon. No dust rising, no figures. Still, it settled unease in her chest. When she returned to the house, Warren was on the roof, hammering cedar shakes into place where the last snow had rotted through. She called up, "You seen wagon tracks out by the bluff?" He paused, lifted his head. "South end," she nodded. He climbed down slow, wiping his hands on a rag tucked into his belt. Could be traders. Could be someone headed to Cheyenne. Could be someone looking. For what? She watched Levy sleep in the basket Warren had lined with wool. "Trouble." He leaned against the doorframe, studying her. "You want me to ride out and look?" "No," she said. "I want you here." That evening the wind picked up again, not bitter like January but restless. Naomi lit the lamp early and pulled the shutters closed. As Warren stirred the stew pot, she sat at the table, sewing a patch into the inside hem of her skirt, a place to hide the small tin coin her mother had given her the day she left Missouri. "Is that silver?" Warren asked without looking up. "No," she said. "It's useless now." "But it was hers." "Then it's not useless." She threaded the cloth shut. "Do you ever miss anyone?" He set the spoon down, wiped his hands on his trousers, then sat across from her. "My brother, killed outside Atlanta. Took a bullet trying to drag a man out of the brush." She folded the skirt across her lap. "Older or younger?" "Younger. Had a dog named Rags and a girl in Shenandoah who never wrote him back." Naomi didn't speak for a moment. "I had a sister. Died birthing her second. No one told me until weeks after she'd passed." Warren nodded once, eyes steady. "That's a hard kind of silence." Later, after the fire died low and Levy was asleep, they sat on the porch steps. Naomi leaned into Warren's side, her legs tucked beneath her. The stars had come out, sharp and clear, the moon not yet risen. "You ever think about leaving?" she asked. "Leaving where?" "Here, this place, Wyoming." He didn't answer right away. "You itching to go?" "No, but I did once, real bad. I used to think if I could just keep moving, I'd find a place where nothing hurt." And now, she exhaled, now I know it's not the place that changes things. Warren stretched his legs, hand resting beside hers. I thought I'd die out here, not fast, just wear down, fence posts and winters. Then you showed up, cold and near gone, but full of fire. I didn't feel full of anything. He looked at her then, his voice low. You were, still are. She reached for his fingers and laced hers through them. You said we'd plant something. We did. I think I want to stay through the harvest. His voice was quiet, sure. I was hoping you would. They didn't kiss. Didn't need to. A hush settled over them, deeper than silence, the sound of two lives fitting side by side as naturally as breath. The earth beneath them still held winter's bones, but something new was rooting down, unseen but certain. Inside, Levy shifted in his sleep, and Naomi rose to check on him. Warren followed, closing the door behind them, keeping the wind from coming in. By late June, the beans had climbed halfway up their poles, and the squash vines curled thick around the edge of the garden beds. Naomi knelt near the rows with a basket pressed to her hip, fingers stained green from pinching stems and pulling weeds. The sun hung heavy above the pines, and the air carried the scent of fresh-cut cedar from the new gate Warren had built at the edge of the field. It was the first gate they'd had. Before, there hadn't been need for one. She shaded her eyes when she saw him coming from the north ridge, leading a bay filly by the reins. The animal moved slow, still learning his pace, but her coat shone and her ears flicked toward every sound. Naomi stood and waited as he approached, brushing soil from her skirt. She yours? She asked, nodding toward the filly. She's ours, Warren said. Traded 2 sacks of oats and a broken rifle for her. Thought we could use something light for errands. Naomi ran her hand down the filly's neck. She's too young for plow work. I wasn't thinking of plow work, he said. I was thinking of you riding her into town when you need something, or want something. She looked up. I haven't been to town in half a year. I know. You don't need to go, but I want you to have the choice. Naomi stepped back, watching the filly nuzzle Warren's shoulder. What else did you trade? He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a folded square of rough dyed cloth. He opened it carefully and laid it in her hands. A pair of soft baby shoes, stitched in tight loops of leather and lined with wool. I figured he'll be walking before the frost sets in, Warren said. Naomi didn't speak. She touched the tiny soles, then looked at the ground. You didn't need to do all this. I know, he said, but I wanted to. She handed the shoes back and he tucked them into his coat again. Inside the cabin that evening, Naomi sat at the table sorting dried herbs while Warren shaped more fence pegs at the far end of the room. When she set aside the last bundle, she leaned forward and said, I've been thinking about the land. He stopped shaving the peg. What about it? There's 30 acres you haven't touched beyond the creek, too rocky to plant. I wasn't thinking of planting. He set the draw knife down. What are you thinking? A school, just a small one room. I can teach writing, arithmetic. The ranch children must ride 10 miles to the mission school. Warren tilted his head. You want a school here? I want something that matters. I want Levy to grow up near books. He leaned forward, elbows on his knees. You teach? I've done it before. Years ago. I've still got the slate boards in my trunk. He nodded slowly. You'll need help building it. I was hoping you'd ask. They spent the next 3 weeks clearing stone and leveling the patch of earth beyond the orchard. Naomi marked the corners with stakes and Warren split the logs himself, measuring twice before each cut. The days were long and full, each hour wrapped in effort. They ate biscuits standing up, brushed sawdust from their hair before bed, and learned the rhythm of each other's work without needing to speak. One evening, as the sun fell low, Naomi stood before the frame of the schoolhouse, hands on her hips, sweat clinging to her neck. Warren stepped behind her, his arms sliding around her waist. "You built this," he said. "We built this." He pressed his face to her shoulder. "You feel settled?" She turned in his arms, eyes searching his. "I feel like I belong." "You do." Naomi reached up, fingers brushing the edge of his jaw. "Then there's one more thing I want. Name it." She looked toward the cabin where the lamplight glowed soft through the window. "I want to marry you." He didn't answer right away. He lifted her hand instead, kissed her knuckles slow. "I meant to ask you come winter when the field work's done." "I don't want to wait." Warren nodded once. "Then we won't." They married under the cottonwoods by the creek the following week. Just the two of them, with Levy in Naomi's arms and Warren's hand wrapped around hers. She wore a dress she dyed with walnut husks, and he wore his clean shirt, the one without patches. There was no preacher, but Warren spoke his words plain and sure, promising to be what she needed, to raise the boy as his own, to hold steady through storm and sun. Naomi answered with a smile that reached her eyes, and a vow to build something lasting, stone by stone, hand in hand. That night they sat on the porch after Levy had fallen asleep, fingers laced, shoulders touching. "What do we do now?" Warren asked. "We live," Naomi said. Years passed. The schoolhouse filled with voices and chalk dust. Levy grew strong and sure-footed, chasing chickens and reading aloud by age 6. Naomi taught 5 children each season, sometimes more, and Warren built desks from the trees he felled himself. They added a second room to the cabin, then a third. Naomi planted lilacs by the door. Warren hung a bell outside the schoolhouse. They never spoke of the winter Naomi arrived. It lived behind them, like a closed door in a house too full of light to notice. Every spring, they walked the ridge together, watching the land green and stretch beneath the sky. And every evening, Naomi still rested her head against Warren's shoulder just to feel him breathe beside her. They grew old together, steady as seasons, their lives stitched into the soil they tended, their love quiet, rooted, and enduring, and it never once let go.